Well, good morning, church family. Thanks again for joining us for these times called Straight Talk. We are really leaning on the wisdom of people that are in our community or closely connected to our community that we know, and asking some of the questions that are coming up for all of us as we walk through this. And so today we get to spend some time with a man who's become a real good friend of mine. He's been a friend of our church and been real involved in walking with us as a church. He's on our admin team. He is the president of Legacy Bank here in Buena Vista. And probably his biggest claim to fame is he's married to the amazing Dave Reyher, and he has 2 children and he has 4 grandchildren. And so we are so thankful to spend a little time with you this morning, Dave. Welcome.
Thanks, Zach. I'm honored to spend some time here this morning. So, thank you.
Well, Dave, we wanted to have you on to give us some perspective and some wisdom in the area of finances, which I would say, outside of the health concerns that we're all looking at in this pandemic, is probably the thing that comes up for us as one of the greatest concerns. And so give us just a little glimpse from what you're seeing of how this global pandemic has affected our economy. How's it hit us?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit just from maybe a national perspective. Of course, everybody and the news likes to talk about what's the Dow Jones doing, and if you're following that very closely, you're going to have a case of whiplash because it's everywhere. But I think there's a few things that we can talk about there just to give us a little bit of perspective. And it's been a long time since I've been in algebra, so you'll have to forgive me if I don't explain this just exactly right. But in 1990, January 1 of 1990, the Dow Jones was at about 5,250.
Okay.
Compare that today to about 2,300 or 23,500. So the equation, the numerator and the denominator in this equation I'm going to talk to you about is significantly different. So if you look at a 2.5% gain or drop back in 1990, that's 131 points on the Dow. If you look at it today, that same 200 or 2.5% drop or gain is almost 600 points. So the thing to pay attention to here is what's the percentage, not the number, the points that it lost, because we're just dealing in bigger numbers now. And so that percentage is always going to equate to a bigger number as well. So, back in 15, the Dow fell by about 11% over about a 6-month period of time. If you compare where we are to January of 19 to today, we're only down 8%. So I think the message here is, from a national level, just hang on. Things will smooth out, and we're gonna definitely get through this. If you're worried about your 401k, just hang in there. It's going to come back.
Yeah, that's a great
locally,
perspective.
Yeah, go ahead. So locally, there's no question that this pandemic has had a pretty severe effect on our economy here. I haven't seen any local numbers, but certainly the number of people who are struggling right now and who are laid off, it's a struggle. There's no question. It's pleasing to see that our local government and our state government is trying to find ways to keep us all safe and get open in a structured manner, and I believe that's a real positive. But there's just no question that it's had a drastic effect on us. But that too will pass. I don't think there's any question that it's going to pass.
Yeah, that's great perspective, Dave. As I've been thinking about this for my own family and talking to others, In a lot of ways, is kind of a wake up call, another wake up call to preparing and trying to be more aware and wise with our finances and our businesses. Talk to us a little bit about what your recommendations are as we come out the other side and we kind of look back and learn from this. What are some principles as far as our savings that we should kind of look at as safe zones or wise places to be?
So there's no question, and maybe I'm speaking from my own experience here, but we get drawn into kind of an attitude of, boy, there's never going to be another bad day, and then times like this come along and wake us up to reality. So one of the lessons that I think we need to learn through this is that we always have to have, whether we're a business, whether we are a consumer, whether we're an individual, whether we're a married couple with a family, we have to do our best to try to build some reserves. And I know that that's a difficult thing to do at times. Our housing costs are high here. Our groceries are a little higher than they might be somewhere else, but we just have to be disciplined, and we have to find a way to build some reserves. And the rule of thumb, and those of you who have been Dave Ramsey fans, I think you know that he says you need to have 6 months worth of reserves in your savings account. And I kind of subscribe to that same philosophy. Certainly, that's a lofty goal, and it should be looked upon as a lofty goal. But there's an awful lot of personal pride and satisfaction that could be gained by attaining that same goal. So my recommendation is always just to you need to do your best to put a rainy day fund along, because who would have ever seen this crazy little virus and what it's doing to us? And you just never know. So it's always good to have those reserves to fall back on.
Yeah, that's great. And this is all hitting our community in different ways. One of the things that is coming our way or has for some people is the stimulus check. And as we think about our finances and those types of things, tell us, from your perspective, what are some good ways to use this stimulus check when it comes to us?
Yeah. So it's probably best, I guess, to break this down maybe into three categories. And the first one that maybe we'll call it the stretch mode. And so we know that we have families in our community that are really counting on this stimulus check to come through. And depending on, the number of people in your family and the dependents, et cetera, it could be a decent number for a family. And if you're somebody that is, a new family and you've got a lot of bills, I'd say you need to stretch that just as far as you can. That is a gift, and it's a needed gift, and it's a gift that I support. So stretch it as far as you can. It's not a time to go and upgrade your TV. Probably it's not a time to. Although my mountain biking friends may not be happy with me, but it's not a time to maybe upgrade the mountain bike. It's a time to stretch that a little bit. I would tell you that the next category that I would probably talk a little bit about is if you're kind of doing okay and you're getting some income and you're getting by, I'd go back to what we talked about previously, and I'd sock that money away. It needs to be saved, and it needs to be put towards that rainy day fund or those reserves, as we talked earlier. You just never know when you're going to need that, and life brings all kinds of surprises to us. And so I would say sock it away. Finally, there are those among us who are blessed And I would say that this gets back to those that are needy in our communities, et cetera. But if you can take that stimulus check and spread it around our community, whether it's buying takeout at the local restaurant and be a generous tipper there, support these local merchants. We're getting news that some of our local folks are going to get to open their retail businesses back up. And I would say go in there and help those folks out. That's one of the things that I think the Lord blesses us with at times, is a way to help others in need. And if you can do it, spread that stimulus check around our community, because that will say a lot about this strong community, and it's going to help an awful lot of people.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Chaffee County Community Fund, the foundation. That's another place you can give. We also have benevolent funds here that can help if you're looking for ways to help the community. So I love that, and I think it's been so encouraging to me, just the generosity that has taken place in our community. And I want to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Let's get in the shoes of somebody who has lost their job. It does not have income right now. Maybe they have a little bit of money and a few credit cards or whatever, and so they're making it. They're thinking, well, maybe my job will turn up, but they can kind of see this mortgage payment coming up, a car payment coming up. These are kind of looming. Give us some wisdom on how we should respond with our creditors and the people that we might owe money to.
Yeah. So what I can tell you is that, I can't speak on behalf of all of the other financial institutions in town, but, we all know each other, and we've got some really good banks in this town. So from the bank standpoint, and even with your utilities providers and some of those, I think that you need to have an honest discussion with any of your creditors. Your creditors understand that this is tough times, and they are prepared to help get through these tough times. All of these creditors are part of this community, and they want to see this community, and they want to see the people in this community do well. And so they understand the tough times that we're having. So I think a phone call to your creditor saying, I'm not going to quite be able to make your whole payment. I can't quite pay this whole bill, whatever the case may be. And just and have an honest discussion. And I think what you're going to find is that person that you're talking to on the other end of that line is going to be very understanding, and is going to be willing to work out some plans that it's going to be mutually beneficial to both. Yeah. So I think the best thing you can do is talk to your creditors and be honest. Just be honest with them.
Yeah, that's great. And I've heard some great stories this week of our banks working with people. And I think it just goes a long way, like you say, to really be proactive, probably not wait till the bank account's completely empty, but to realize, hey, this is coming, and to talk to your bank and see what they can do, or even, your credit cards and those types of things. So that's great wisdom. And it's amazing when we get fearful, some of these things, go to the back of our mind and we don't think about this, but it can really save our credit, and it can be also a way to honor those people that we owe money to. With the stimulus check coming in, which is a great thing, I've also been aware of a lot of scams. Tell us about some that you're aware of and how we can be careful.
Yeah. I know in our banking trade association, in industry news that we get from time to time, of course, when people are really vulnerable this time with all the fear, just being scared about what's our future look like. Unfortunately, there's folks out there that are willing and have no problem playing on that fear and playing on that ability to talk you into something that you might wish that you'd have thought about it a little more. But their scams are coming up, and it's amazing. You'd think as much as it's talked about in the news media and talked about that people would finally catch on, but people are generally just trusting, and so these scammers will play on that, and they're more than willing to take advantage of you. So I think a basic rule of thumb comes down to, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. And I think that's a general rule of thumb that you want to follow. Secondly, if somebody calls you and indicates they're from the IRS and they need some information in order to get you your stimulus check, simply hang up. There's a really cool little website that I've checked out just on behalf of some other folks that allow you to get the status of where your stimulus check is. Your bank, I know I can speak for all banks on this, your bank is not going to ask you some of these questions that are kind of personal private information, such as social security number, some of those things. They're not going to ask you that over the phone. These folks are really good at what they do. I would just be really cautious, know who you're talking to, ask for a phone number that you can call back. They're really good at trying to talk you out of that. And if that's the case, simply hang up the phone.
That's great.
So
yeah, that's
just
really
be
great
really
wisdom.
aware.
Especially that phone number to call somebody back. I think that's a really, really wise. Well, Dave, tell us a little bit. We've talked about some of the hardships that we're going through in this and the challenges. What do you see as some of the opportunities for us spiritually, but also even financially as we walk forward out of this?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is, we've said it in this interview before. These are really hard times, and me personally, I don't believe that the Lord creates hard times for us to go through just to teach us a lesson. But I do think that there's opportunities for us to learn and rely on the love that our Lord and Savior has for us. And so there are some opportunities to learn some things through these difficult times. There's no question. And I believe that's what helps you get through these times. One of the things that helps you get through these times, and that's to learn from them, learn lessons. We talked a little bit before about, maybe this is something that will help me to be a better saver. Maybe it's something that'll help me being able to budget my funds. But probably more importantly, this is really an opportunity for us to show and share. For those of us who are believers, it's a real good opportunity for us to show the love of God through our actions daily. And I just think I really believe that. I believe that by reaching out, helping somebody in need, you never know what that's telling somebody about you as a believer. And it may open the door for a conversation, and it may open the door for somebody to maybe take a step towards a new belief that they've never had. So I believe those opportunities are out there, and we should probably take advantage of them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great perspective. Dave, I want to say thank you for the time and the wisdom that you've poured into our church, on the admin team, and helping us discern during these times our finances for our budget and how to walk through those in wise ways. You've been a big part of that, and thank you for serving our local community. You've been an advocate for our town and for our kids in many different ways over the years since '07. And thanks for taking time this morning to share your heart and to give us some wisdom that you've learned along the way. So have a great day, and again, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. I'm honored. Thank you.
We'll talk soon. Well, church, thanks for joining us again this morning, and just appreciate all of you who have sent comments in, responded to some of our straight talks, the ways that it's benefited you or what you've learned, or even some ideas that you've given us. You can always email us at info@clearviewcommunity.org. Also, if you are needing help or you're in a place where you're feeling like you need some hope, please don't hesitate to reach out to us as a church and let us help you or help find resources for you. So I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and so thankful for you. And we sure miss being with you in person, but we're thankful that we can connect in this way. God bless.